Greetings, I'm Dev the Developer. This lesson covers the link tag. It lives inside of the head section of your HTML document, and it connects your page to external resources. We will look at its key attributes and the three most common things you will use it for: style sheets, favicons, and canonical URLs. The link tag is another void element. It has no closing tag and no content of its own. Its job is purely relational. It tells the browser, here is something outside of this document and how it relates to this page. It always goes inside of the head tag and never inside of the body tag. And it has a couple of required attributes that make it work. Those two attributes, rel and href, are the core of the link tag. Let's go through them. The rel attribute describes the relationship between the current document and the resource you are linking to. It tells the browser what the role that external resource plays in your document. The value you use depends on what you are linking. A style sheet gets rel equals style sheet. A favicon gets rel equals icon, and a canonical URL gets rel equals canonical. There are other values also, and we'll get to a modern one at the end of this lesson, but those three are where you will spend most of your time. That comment is actually accurate. Rel is the what, and the href is the where. The href attribute is the URL of the resource you are linking. You've probably seen href on anchor tags for navigation links. It works exactly the same here. You can use a relative path, which resolves from the location of the current HTML file, or you can use an absolute URL, which is the full address starting with HTTPS. I'm not asking. The first two use relative paths. The canonical uses an absolute URL, which is typical for canonical links, since you are pointing to a specific definitive address. You will sometimes see a type attribute on link tags. It specifies the MIME type of the linked resource, like text CSS for style sheet or image xicon for a favicon. In HTML5, type on a style sheet link is optional. The browser already knows from rel equals style sheet that it should expect CSS. You do not need to spell it out. A lot of existing code includes it and it does not hurt anything, but if you write a link tag today without it, nothing breaks. For favicons, type is more useful since the browser may encounter different image formats. It is very reasonable to include it there, but for style sheets, feel free to leave it out. And to that point, the most common use of link is connecting an external CSS style sheet. You can set rel to style sheet and href to the path of your CSS file. The browser fetches that file and applies the styles to your page. We are not going to get into CSS in this lesson. That comes later, but this is what the connection will look like in your HTML. When you have a CSS file and an HTML file, this is how they connect. One line in the head section. A favicon is that small little icon that appears in the browser tab next to the page title. You have definitely seen them. Setting one is fairly straightforward. Point href at your icon file and set rel to icon. The icon file itself is typically a square image. 16 by 16 or 32 by 32 pixels are fairly common size. The .ico format has the widest browser support, but PNG and SVGs also work in modern browsers. Canonical URLs are a search engine concern. If you have the same content accessible at multiple URLs, like with and without query parameters or through HTTP and HTTPS, search engines can get confused about which version to index. The canonical link tag tells them this is the one that counts. When you do not have duplicate URL situations, you may not need this at all, but it is worth knowing it exists because you will encounter it in real code bases, and now at least you'll know what you're doing. One more rel value worth noting: preload. This tells the browser to fetch a resource early before it would normally discover it during page parsing. It is useful for things like fonts or scripts that a page is going to depend on. The details of preload go well beyond this lesson, but the point is that rel is an extensible attribute. Stylesheet, icon, and canonical are the common starting points, but as you work on real projects, you will encounter others. The link tag lives in the head, connects your document to external resources, and does its work through the rel and href attributes. Stylesheets, favicons, canonical URLs. Now go add a link tag to an HTML file and see it connect. Don't just watch it, do it.